welcome to everyone. I'm Jessica Pitcher. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Services. And just to give you a mouthful, within the Office of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving. So whether or not you knew that Alumni Career Services exists, our office does hope to support alumni wherever they are in their career journeys. And whether you're 22 or 52 or anything in between, nearing retirement, whatever that looks like for you, we're here to help. So I just wanted to give a quick overview for our presenter today. Mollie Eastman is a 2008 grad. So a quick little shout out to all the grads from the 2000s. She's the creator of Sleep is a Skill. She created her own business. She also does a podcast. We had a quick chat before you all joined and found out all the amazing things that she's working on. But she's hoping to combine technology, accountability, and behavioral change so that we can all sleep a little bit better. So we're hoping that you can learn a few things today, and I'm going to throw it over to her because you came to hear from her and not me, and nobody likes a long intro. So off and running, Mollie.
Awesome. Thank you for that intro. Very to the point, succinct, perfect. Love it. And yes, the aim today is to discuss all things sleep optimization. So hopefully you're in the right Zoom call. These are the topics that you want to hear about because we're going to go deep on sleep. The thing that we do a third of our lives, on average 26 years are spent asleep for the average individual. And yet we don't always think about it very often. Maybe some of you think about it more than others, but we're going to really look at it today. So the plan for today is to go through some slides. Now, I know how sometimes when presentations go into slides, it can feel like, we're watching TV or something and we can tune out or we can, kind of half be there. My request would be to be fully present as much as you possibly can so that you leave this conversation with some things that you can start doing today. And while I'm talking, I happen to be in Austin, Texas, and to the temperature topic, it is 28 degrees here, but I did spend, surprise for Texas, right? But I did spend most of my life in the Northeast and in Syracuse. And I share all this because of the fact that I understand that it is really, really crucial for us to be able to focus on these topics or focus on this area for this period of time. And if some of these questions come up for you while I'm speaking, sometimes I can be a fast talking New Yorker. That's why I mentioned the geographical location. If I leave anything out or if I'm, zooming past something, please be thinking of some of the questions that you want to ask because I am going to leave time at the end of this for you to get those questions answered. So I'm going to share screen, but don't tune out and know that we're going to leave time for you so that this is really more bespoke, if you will. So let me just share screen and do that fancy presentation mode. And so I can see some of you while I'm speaking, but please feel free to put into the chat if anything's kind of burning questions while I'm going along. I'll try to do my best to check in with those periodically and answer any of those if we need during this presentation. Okay, so first off, what are we going to be talking about? Well, we're going to talk about sleep optimization. 3 strategies for getting the best sleep of your life is our intention. Again, I'm Mollie Eastman, graduated from Syracuse University, and very grateful to have this opportunity to, kind of virtually return to Syracuse and provide any support in any way that I can. I'll just be checking in on some of these. Oh, sleep apnea. We're going to be talking about sleep disorders, all kinds of things. So that's fantastic. So we'll touch on some of those. Thank you. Thank you. Love that. All right. Now I briefly touched on this, but it is so, so important. I work with a lot of high stakes poker players. It's kind of my particular niche in sleep, and not exclusively, but I have a lot of people that I work with in that arena. So one of the things that they say is to extract max value. So I would like to offer that for you to extract max value today, if you have your phone near you, if you have any tabs up, if you have anything else, going in the background, just kind of setting those aside for this time being. And even if you can, I think I saw someone taking notes or what have you, like amazing. If you can do some of that, that, because we know that that tends to actually result in a bit more retention of the things that we're talking about. All right, enough of that. So let's get into it. So who am I? Who is this person speaking to you about sleep? Well, my journey into sleep optimization was kind of a circuitous route, really. And I did not imagine that this would be the area that I would be going into. When I went to Syracuse, I was studying more in communications. So, in communications and rhetorical studies, I looked at psychology, but it was not an area of the sleep was not the thing that I was looking at. And as a result of this route, I now think of my life in a 3-part series. What do I mean by that? I think of it as really before I went through this kind of sleep breakdown is really what it looked like, during that period, and after. So the before, what that kind of entailed was I thought of myself as someone that had a series of labels and narratives around my sleep. So I would say things like, I'm a short sleeper, I'm a night owl, it's in my genes, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Certainly when I was attending Syracuse, I was a fan of, all-nighters and just really not the best relationship to my sleep, and didn't really think that there was anything wrong with that. Just a matter of kind of more coffee or pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Not much to think about from that arena or from that area. And it was, as the years went on and I graduated Syracuse, moved to Manhattan, serial entrepreneur, burning the candle at both ends, I didn't connect a number of kind of signs and symptoms that my sleep may have been having anything to do with some of the deleterious effects of my health, meaning that I had certain things like I had shingles in my 20s. I had the beginnings of an ulcer. I had a lot of irregularities with my cycle. I had a lot of anxiety. I had these signs with my health that things were not really working out so well, but I didn't think that sleep had a role to play in that. And so it was kind of just kept on going on with the way that I was managing my sleep and getting more and more pronounced. And I'm getting more and more righteous and justified as I'm going to bed later and later. And I'm saying, well, I'm an entrepreneur, so I just wake up later. What's the big deal? And so it wasn't until I went through a real sleep breakdown. I had this a period of insomnia that I had never experienced anything like it, where I suddenly had what felt like an inability to fall asleep, or if I did fall asleep, then very shortly thereafter, waking up, and then paired with early morning awakening. So this experience of suddenly a huge question mark of, will I be able to sleep? Am I capable of sleep? And that experience completely shifted and changed my life. Why? Because this is actually in the midst of my husband and I have been together for 13 years. In the beginning of our relationship, we decided to, as serial entrepreneurs, put all of our things into storage, and we were going to have a one-way ticket and travel, become digital nomads. And it sounded like a great idea, but it wasn't quite there because our businesses were not ready for that. And the amount of stress that we brought into that initiative, we took that one-way ticket. When we landed in Madrid, I had a panic attack that first night and thought, did I make a huge mistake? And paired with jet lag and anxiety, then suddenly that sleep night after night after night began to be a question of, will I be able to get sleep? Or is this something that now, did I mess something up physiologically? Did I flip some sort of switch and now I just can't sleep? Now, I know as I'm saying these things, logically, that might not make sense, but these are some of the things that we think when we're struggling with insomnia. Did I do something? Did something happen? Maybe I used to sleep well, and now, I've had kids, I had surgery, I had this or whatever. Some of us will start to question, is it available to me? And that's what happened for me. So flash forward, I end up going to the doctors. I leave with sleeping pills. And in that moment, really realize, okay, it appears my takeaway is, if I'm going to figure this out, it looks as if I'm going to have to do this on my own. And from that place began this kind of quest to understand, what in the world does it take to get great sleep? Not just from a kind of curiosity, but from a really I must figure this out place because I was starting to get so terrified that I was stuck like this. And at some of my lowest moments, I remember thinking, I cannot go on if this is the case. I feel like I'm losing my mind and it is so scary. So those are some of the rock bottom periods for me, and that fueled that fire to figure this out. Now, what ended up ensuing was I spent a lot of time, energy, money, effort, attention, etc. We actually flew back to America to figure out my sleep problems. And so that was how high the stakes were for this area. And then from that place, I actually did begin to restore my relationship with my sleep. And I'll talk about some of the things that work. But what I discovered completely changed my experience of life and turned my lifestyle and how I manage my life upside down. And so now, on the other side of that, today, sleeping great quantifiably. So, meaning that with just about every tracker that's on the market, I've tested my sleep with. So, certainly Oura Ring, Whoop, BioStrap, Apple, Garmin, Dream headbands, Muse, et cetera, more and more. Lots of ways of getting data around that sleep, and now being able to think of myself as someone that can not only just get sleep, but sleep really well, which I didn't even think was available to me. I didn't think it was like a thing that I could do. I now host the #2 sleep podcast. I interact with thousands of people daily to improve their sleep, run the Sleep Obsessions Monday newsletter. We have never missed a Monday, 5 years strong. We have a very large scale Oura Ring database for sleep optimization, so that I can really see what moves the needle for people day in and day out with their sleep as far as behavioral, environmental, and different initiatives are concerned. I shared I have a specialty in high stakes poker players, work with UFC entrepreneurs. We have partnerships with luxury hotels, lifestyle brands, and we run online sleep courses and programs. Now, I say all that not just to blabber on about those things, but I share that because no matter where you might be at with your sleep, I promise that there are things that we can do to up level your results, no matter if you are like me and like really, really struggling with your sleep, or you're sleeping fine and you would just like to, have some curiosity on maybe I could improve it a bit, or anywhere in between. I assure you that this whole world of sleep optimization can be massively transformative. And it's kind of great that we're kicking off the new year on this topic. Okay, so the takeaway there is that as a result, my mission on this planet is to give people agency with their sleep, and specifically through circadian health. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Um, but I will say that part of what I discovered through that quest to optimize sleep was this kind of reoccurring theme that I kept stumbling upon, of this world of chronobiology, fancy term for the science of time and how time affects our biology, and something known as circadian rhythm entrainment. So I'll get into that, but that, is put a pin in that because that's a really, really important area to hone in on to improve our sleep. Let me just double check that I'm not missing anything. Yes, chronobiology, dream enactment. Okay, we are going to have to dive into some of these things. Amazing. Okay, great. So let's just make sure part of my goal here is I'm going to share a little bit of context, a little bit of kind of the science around sleep, but just stay with me because then I will shift over to much more of the practical takeaways of the things that you can get into. But I find that if I just jump right to the practical, people aren't as, kind of connected to why it matters. So I am going to spend a few minutes on that topic. Okay. So if you can just try on with me that in this pyramid of wellness, or in when we think about the new year and people say all their, resolutions that they're going to take on, or maybe we've already forgotten our resolutions, frankly, at this point. But in the beginning of the year, we often think of hiring trainers, kind of honing in on our diet and maybe getting a nutritionist. We might be wanting to really work on our mindset and all these fantastic things for wellness. That's great. Please, do those things. But I would actually argue that in order to amplify your results in that area, that it would behoove us to begin with sleep as the first place that we actually look to optimize. Why? Because when we do that, we have a much greater shot at fulfilling on those things naturally. What do I mean by that? Well, there's bidirectional relationships between our ability to sleep well and to have a lot of those other things of wellness kind of fall into place. Your ability to get those gains at the gym due to growth hormone that's released throughout the course of our sleep and other reasons, your ability to make smart decisions in your kitchen, because of the fact that we know that even just one poor night of sleep can actually set you up to look closer, to really dramatically shift your glucose regulation after one night of insufficient sleep. So it's going to lead you to be kind of craving certain other types of foods. It could make it more challenging to select those foods that serve you, and will ripple into our mental health. So even we know that even after an insufficient night of sleep, that we have a tendency to fall into more anxiety-laden types of thoughts. We have more faulty kind of error rate, if you will. Safety issues come up as far as driving, etc. So there's so many things as far as the pyramid of wellness that are impacted. So let's just try on that we're beginning with sleep. And so if you entertain me with that, then I would like to begin with the piece that sleep is a skill. I named this company for a reason. Sleep is a skill. And like any great skill, we want to kind of start at the beginning, a blank canvas. And if we have this blank canvas, we want to imagine that it's the foundation of wellness, but it's far more than just the hours that you log. Many people start with, well, I get 7, 8 hours, so I'm fine. And yet it's about the depth, the quality, the efficiency, the regulation, and the duration. But there are so many things like any skill that we can do to strengthen our results. So our behaviors, our environment, our psychology, et cetera. And the good news is that it can be learned. So that's a really exciting place to stand. Okay, so is it, though, a problem? Like, does it really warrant an entire presentation about it? Well, let's look. If you go to Google Trends, it's a great place to kind of get a sense of what are the people talking about? What are they searching for? And so if you go to Google Trends, you can see what are some of the keyword search inquiries that have been occurring over the past bunch of years. And so this is from 2004. And if you put in sleep help, sleep remedies, sleeping aids, sleeping pills, supplements for sleep, etc., you're going to see a very similar arc like this, where just there's this uptick in the amount of interest in these areas. And presumably we would extract that people are having problems with this area enough to search for how to get some help with it. So we are seeing this kind of cry for sleep help and landing as a bit of a sleep epidemic, where a very large percent of our population is struggling in some way, shape, or form. Well, why does that matter? Well, it appears that virtually every life domain that we can think of, and I give these presentations all over the place, and I continue to ask people if you have any kind of examples for me of areas of life that are not impacted when we're not sleeping well, like, let me know. But I still have not seemed to find anyone that has been able to answer that for me. And it appears that we've got this laundry list. So cognitive and brain health, emotional and mental health, physical health, immunity, metabolic health, cardiovascular health, growth and development, reproductive health, pain perception, aging, and so much more. It even goes into the realm of our interpersonal interactions. My husband is a nonverbal communication expert, so body language. Our ability to read faces is impacted if we don't get a good night of sleep. I mean, it spiders out into domains that we might not have thought of. So it's a big, big deal. Now, on the flip side, as we improve our ability to sleep, the nice thing is that we can imagine that there can be gains in all of these areas. So that's kind of fun. Now, I mentioned about sleep duration, and I said that that's not the only important factor in sleep, but I get so many people talking about it, and they want to know, well, how much should I be sleeping, et cetera. So I will touch on this fact because we do have a lot of data in this area, and this actually goes back to a meta-analysis that appeared in the journal Sleep, and they found that people that are regularly getting fewer than 6 hours of sleep are at a higher risk for diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cognitive decline, and my favorite, death from any cause, also known as all-cause mortality, just purely from consistently sleeping less than about 6 hours of sleep a night. Now, this is not exclusive. We also know that if you're sleeping too much, that can be a red flag as well. So if we're starting to creep over the far past the 9 hours, so 10, 11, et cetera, that gives us pause and cause to kind of explore that sleep that can go in the realm of hypersomnia, and want to understand what's going on there as well. But so from a duration perspective, it is absolutely important, but it's not the only thing. What else is there? Well, we want to make sure that we're ruling out the over 100 sleep-wake disorders, and that's out of Mount Sinai, the categorization and laundry list of over 100 sleep-wake disorders. Now, someone in the comments had mentioned about their sleep apnea. So that is so prevalent, and sadly, so often goes either undiagnosed, or even if diagnosed, untreated, or maybe insufficiently treated. So meaning that once they even get that diagnosis, that they struggle to kind of find the right treatment plan for them, because there are many ways to treat sleep apnea. So you want to rule out if we have any suspicion of sleep apnea or upper air resistance syndrome. Just snoring is a actual sleep-wake disorder. Restless leg syndrome, narcolepsy, bruxism, fancy word for teeth grinding, and so much more. So it's really, really crucial for us to take these steps. Now, absolutely, an in-lab sleep test is, the kind of the paramount and the gold standard for addressing these. It might be important to also know that at-home sleep tests can be helpful as well, but they are looking more for that respiratory-based sleep disorders. So something to be aware of, but those are around $200 now. So Lofton and Power Sleep are two companies. I have no affiliation with them. They're medical companies, but can be something you could look into if you have any concerns of this. And even if you were tested before, years back, and you had a clean bill of, health or results, do know that can change over time. So if you gain even a 10% increase in weight, can result in a 6-fold increase in your likelihood of something like sleep apnea. That's wild. So just a little bit of weight gain, a change in our hormones can shift that. There's a number of things to be aware of. So it's a dynamic result. All right. So assuming that we're kind of on team, yes, let's improve our sleep. We're hopefully a bit more committed in this conversation. So what do we do about it? What's the solution? Well, I alluded to circadian rhythm entrainment previously, and now I'll explain why I believe that is one of the key places to begin to support your sleep. Now, this doesn't rule out absolutely getting tested for sleep disorders. You always want to do that. Now, this would be in conjunction with those measures. Okay, so let me just take a quick look before I get into that I'm not missing anything. Okay, so we've got restless legs in the house. All right, yes. That is a big one. And there's like all skills, there are absolutely things we can do. Oh, amazing. We've got that commitment around great sleep. Love it. Lucid dreaming. Oh, yeah, that's a big topic. Google search, more of rely on technology. Yes, well said. And we'll talk about certain, I can absolutely share about different supplements and certain things of that nature. But I will say that often what I find out of the hundreds and hundreds of people that we have going through using different sleep wearables, that often the supplements are kind of some of the last things that we find to really move the needle. Now, if you're dealing with true deficiencies or what have you, obviously test and treat those. But what we often find from a behavioral perspective for most people is that a lot of the things I'm going to be mentioning really move the needle a bit more. Great about the diagnosing on sleep apnea. Love that. Yes. And you can feel like a new person. It's been amazing. We'll see. It's akin to, the colors are brighter, the sky is clearer when you get this figured out, if that is part of the case for your kind of sleep puzzle. All right. So back to this. So I mentioned the circadian rhythm piece, and it would probably help us to define that. So a circadian rhythm is our 24-hour cycle of physiological processes that our body undergoes, driven by time givers known as Zeitgebers, fancy word, such as light exposure, temperature, and meal timing. What the heck does that mean? That simply means that we are, as human beings, we're all kind of governed by this 24-hour cycle, and our body is looking to stay on time. We have trillions of clocks in every cell and organ in our body, and they want to know what time it is and what to be doing when. And what does that affect? Well, that affects a lot of things. When we think of circadian rhythm, we might just think of sleep, and that would make a lot of sense, and that is true, but there are more things that these rhythms affect. And I truly believe that this is going to be one of the blueprints that we see in as far as future trends and emphasis in the wellness space, that you'll start to hear so much more about this. You already, or should be, we're starting to see a lot more press on this topic, but I anticipate we'll see way more. Why? Because when these rhythms are out of whack, if you will, then not only does sleep get disrupted, but your digestion, regeneration, energy, body temperature, melatonin, cortisol, growth hormone, insulin, leptin, ghrelin, sex hormones, thyroid hormones, and immune function are some of the things that actually get thrown off when these rhythms are not kind of functioning as we would like. So what does that look like for the average person? Well, as human beings, we're diurnal creatures, and it means that we are meant to be active during the day and at rest at night. We're not nocturnal. We are not meant to flip the script, kind of like I was, when I was justified and righteous and going to bed super, super late, waking up super, super late, and thought that there was no impact around that. Part of the reason we know that this can be impactful for our health and well-being is some of the research we have around shift workers who are doing nothing more than just kind of being awake at times when most people are asleep. And so we know that this can really affect our health. But here's the question. What changed so that we're seeing this kind of, Mount Everest climb in the problems and queries for people around how to improve their sleep? Why is this happening? Why does it keep going up and up? Well, I assert that it goes back to our environment, something I call the indoor issue. And it turns out that we've gone indoors. And what I mean by that is that as of 2001, it's quite a while ago, but as of 2001, the APA found that the average American was spending around 93% of their time indoors. Now that broke down to in buildings and automobiles. And so these are largely in these climate controlled environments surrounded by man-made lighting comforts, with speculations that things have probably gotten worse. Now, those stats were before a global pandemic, before the work from home revolution, before Zoom, I think, right? I don't think Zoom was back there. Netflix, before our smartphones and our laptops and all these things. So if you're a betting person, I think you could easily wager that we're probably inside even more than that nowadays, right? So why does that matter? Well, because for thousands of years, this is, and stay with me, I promise we'll get into the practical in a moment, but this is important because for thousands of years, this is the type of environment that we were under because we were outside. When we were outside, this was the lighting change that we would have experienced. We would have woken up and we would have this beautiful kind of warm sunrise, rich in infrared light. It told the body a lot about what it was supposed to be doing and when. It kind of signaled certain hormone production. As you went through the day and you're underneath all of this, you had this bright light exposure right above you, and then it would start to drop into the evening. And then again, that pinky hue would tell the body again something about what time it is and what to be doing when. It's time to then prepare for sleep. It's time to create proper, sufficient dosing of melatonin and help align us with these rhythms so that we can do it all over again. That's what we did for thousands of years. Now, here's what's really interesting. The light that we were under during that time always looked like this. And it included this beautiful kind of band of blue light in the days. So blue light gets really villainized in sleep. And it's true, it's really problematic at night. But by day, we want that. It's really energizing and we can really be able to take on our work and our commitments and all these things. We want that, but we always want it balanced with these other rhythms or these other bands of light. And that's what we would have been under. And then you see how things really change around sunset, and it goes into that beautiful, rich red, infrared hued light. And why the heck does that matter? Well, turns out that as of just this year, 145 years ago, Edison created the light bulb. And you'll notice that the incandescent light bulb really mirrors pretty nicely to what we would have been exposed to in sunset. Now, it was still artificially extending our days and allowed us to have much longer days than we ever had in the past, but at least it was kind of akin to the type of lighting that we would have been exposed to at least during sunset. Now, so this past year, the incandescent light bulb became illegal to purchase. So what most of us are under, and what we have been under for the past few decades, largely are LEDs. Some people, a little bit of fluorescence, but most of us under these LED lights at night. And this is really important to some of our troubles and struggles with our sleep. Now, you'll notice that the LED light bulbs have this huge band of blue light present in them, virtually no red light or warm tones available in there. And that's what our evenings look like for most of us, right? This is such a problem to our sleep that last year a scientific consensus was released, meaning that a bunch of scientists got together and said, we got a problem. And so about 248 circadian specific scientists, referencing 2,697 peer-reviewed publications, are actually calling for warning labels on light bulbs when used at night, citing that they are so greatly impacting things like obesity, diabetes, heart disease, reproductive disorders, psychiatric disorders, cancers, and of course, in this conversation, poor sleep. Like, what? Warning labels on light bulbs at night? We're all using light bulbs. We've been using these for ages. Could this really be that much of a problem? Well, it turns out that it is. It's really a big deal. And so part of the solution that I'm pointing to is something that I like to call rewilding. But rewilding is, I pull that name. Part of that is pulled from this really elegant and often referenced set of studies, the camping studies. These came out of the University of Colorado, and they took people of all different, bedtimes, and a lot of them saying, "Oh, I'm a super night owl. I can't go to bed before midnight or whatever." And they took them all camping within a very short period of time by being exposed to bright days and dark nights. They measured their melatonin production, saw their results with their sleep, and they suddenly were very quickly melatonin production moved way earlier, and they started falling asleep much more aligned with when sunset would happen not too far after that sunset. So what that demonstrates is that earlier circadian timing can be rapidly achieved through natural light exposure by day, and in this case, during a weekend spent camping. Do I expect all of us are going to just start, moving out into the woods? Probably not. But what can we learn from this, and how can we take this into our own lives? Well, rewilding, another term for circadian rhythm entrainment. All this means is that we are really synchronizing our daily kind of environment and behaviors to mimic what would have been happening outside as much as we possibly can to get some of those results that those people saw in their kind of experience, where just by aligning with these rhythms, then they change the urge to sleep markedly, measurably, so that they're going to bed earlier, they're waking up more aligned with the rhythms of nature. Now, I'm not saying that suddenly you have to become like some sort of early bird or what have you. It's more questioning, are we as much of these labels that we might have thought we were? When people would say, oh, I'm extreme night owl, I'm a this, I'm a that. Are we actually being more influenced by our environment than we realize? Okay. So with that said, I'm going to get into the practical. So the three things that we're looking at that you can start bringing into your life if you just, kind of try on with me, that this rewilding or aligning your environment and behaviors with the rhythms of nature could give you some of these results with your sleep and make all this easier for you. So that's all kind of automatic. You get sleepy at around the same time, you wake up at around the same time, and you feel refreshed when you wake up. Let's try this on. So the big things are light, dark timing, temperature timing, and meal timing. So I mentioned this word Zeitgeber, and it's a fancy word for time giver. And since the body and the eyes are directly connected to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that's the master clock in our brains that's connecting to all these peripheral clocks, those trillions of clocks in every cell and organ in our body, that suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, is kind of the conductor of all of this. Why would light dark be so important? Because the eyes are closely linked to that spot in the brain. So that's going to be the first most important cue. If you get nothing out of what I'm saying, I know I'm talking a lot, but if you get nothing else out of what I'm saying, I want you to know that you want to start getting really curious about your light and dark environment. Because most of us are doing this wrong. What do I mean by this? Well, our goal is to have brighter days and darker nights. That's the whole thing, because approximately 90% or more, as we discussed, of our time is now spent indoors under electric light. That is typically 100 times dimmer during the day than natural daylight would be, and 100 times brighter after dusk than even the brightest moonlight. This is coming out of that scientific consensus that I shared with you. So this is a big problem. So our solution is to see what can we do to have the brightest of days and the darkest of nights. Well, the big anchoring activity that I want you to do, and it's free, is to physically get ourselves outside each morning. And another anchoring habit is that because sleep loves consistency, it likes to have the same sort of things happening day in, day out as much as possible, obviously. So you're waking up about the same time 7 days a week is the goal. You know, you can pendulum swing that a little bit, maybe plus or minus around 30 minutes or so, hopefully. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of movement there, but that you're anchored at about the same time. Say it's 7 a.m. Okay, so you're waking up 7 a.m. around 7 days a week. And then I want you to get up and out to physically get that bright light into your eyes during that time. Now, it's important to know that this does get more complicated depending on where you are on the globe. We're all chatting about where we live and the temperature it is and the places that we're in. If you're in a kind of northern latitude location, that in the winter months, your sun is going to be weaker than the sun's rays that I'm getting down here in Texas. So that will affect the amount of time that you're outside. But to start, just even 5 to 10 minutes is going to be a huge win, more than most people are doing. And what does that do? It resets our master clock each morning that we do this. Now, this is not from behind sunglasses or hats. You're taking off those things and that you're getting that bright light exposure into the eyes. Obviously, you're not staring into the sun or being irresponsible or anything, but you're getting that bright light exposure like we did for thousands of years. And you're doing that outdoors and frequently. Do know that getting that sunlight from behind a window can take anywhere from 50 to 100 times longer to reset our master clock than just physically getting outside. So if you're in a car, even just rolling down the window to get a little bit of that light can be, I keep saying rolling down, but people are like, no one rolls anymore. So maybe pushing a button, really dating myself. But yes, pushing the button down, getting that light into your eyes. This goes into kind of the physics of light. And so really fascinating. You could have a whole presentation on just this topic, but I promise I'll move on from this topic, but it's so crucial. So start to get curious about the light in your environment. Okay, so then that you're really aiming to get as much bright light as possible by day. Well, in the nights, I mentioned how concerned many experts are in our use of just plain old, banal, innocuous, seemingly normal LED light bulbs at night. So we want to actually shift those out. And my suggestion would be red bulbs. You can get these for like $10 on Amazon, or even amber bulbs would be another one. You're just looking to get, and often they'll say like sleep specific bulbs, and they'll say they're devoid of blue light bands within those lights. So you're looking for those, or candles, fire. That's what we are also exposed to as a way to extend our days for thousands of years. You could also do that as well. But you want to make sure your evenings do not have the presence of those blue rich lights because those are depleting our melatonin. Melatonin is known as the hormone of darkness, and it requires the presence of darkness to properly build up that amount of melatonin that we're looking to have to prepare us for sleep and help us fall asleep with ease, but also stay asleep. This happens to just give you a window into my life, and my husband does not necessarily love this, but I'll show you what my life looks like. You can actually make just about red everything and pretty affordably on Amazon for like less than $10. You can get these kind of red stickery type sheets. Anyway, you can put those onto anything that's glowing annoyingly and includes our refrigerator. Don't judge. We got to organize our refrigerator better. But we got the Kindle, happen to have this glowing AC unit, whatever is annoyingly glowing in your space, but you still need the light. You can throw on an affordable kind of cover for that. And then suddenly it's very sleep friendly. Okay. So, and some of you are going to say, I'm not going to do some of these things. Okay, fine. So if you get blue blockers, that is another solution. Now, blue blockers get intricate and it's not the clear ones. So those are really ineffective for the nights. Unfortunately, I would love it. They would look a lot cooler, but we need post sunset for them to be orange or red hues to actually do much of anything to really truly block the blue. How do you check if yours are really working? You can put them up against any sort of blue light in the environment. And if you can still see the blue, they're not really working. They're not really living up to the name. They got to block the blue. So those can be things that you can use when you're forcibly in environments that have that still, you got to run into Target or something. And it's just the crazy blue big box with tons of faux light. That can kind of help you, or if you're going to watch a show and you got the TV and some of the glow of that. But most of the time, we're hoping to set up our own home environment so that we're not really dealing with that. Why? Because again, number one most impactful zeitgeber or time giver for our sleep is our light dark timing. The next thing I would share is I'd like to have all of you using red screens. So putting there's a hidden filter on the iPhone that can make it red like this, Twilight on the Android. You can, if you don't want to think about any of these things, these circadian auto timers, and you make them auto timers or circadian aligned, just like you would with your holiday lighting or what have you. And you can get those for like $10 on Amazon, and just make sort of your evening lights turn on at the same time, at the particular time. Longer topic, but vitamin D is crucial for sleep. Many people are deficient, and especially if you're in a northern latitude location, it's very challenging. It's nearly impossible to make sufficient vitamin D. So you must get that numbering correct. So you want to test for your vitamin D at different points throughout the year. You will not be sleeping well if you're not getting sufficient vitamin D. But these are two options that you can get from a lamp, which is really interesting. So Spurdy and Chroma D. Spurdy you can get covered under insurance if you have any vitamin D related things, skin disorders or what have you. But that can really play a role in your sleep. I can share more offline about the why, but that's really crucial. Now, I know this is a big topic. I'm throwing a lot at you. So for further guidance, the Circadian app, no affiliation, but really, really helpful. It's kind of putting all of this research together into a friendly app. And then you can put in some of your habits and behaviors, and it can tell you things that you can do to align your lifestyle with the circadian rhythm pieces, including things that we're going to talk about, meal timing, etc. Light Meter is a free or maybe $1 or something app that will test the light in your environment. Because again, you want to know most indoor environments are less than about 1,000 lux. That is totally insufficient. So that's why we need to get outside multiple times throughout the course of the day. When smokers back in the day would take smoke breaks, we want to take sun breaks where you just make that happen for a short period of time. It's just telling your body what time it is and what to be doing when. So this Light Meter can show you the massive difference. You put your phone up outside and you say, wow, oh my gosh, there's so much more light, thousands and thousands, it might be 10,000, 100,000 lux outside on a, bright summery day versus, a piddly, say 200 lux indoors. Okay, so all those things are going to help you. This is at a glance, some of those things that I just talked about for circadian light dark timing. And this is the most important Guybrush. That's why I spend so much time on it. And I know we only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to then more quickly just go through the last two. And I can make the point of the last two fairly succinctly, which is the temperature timing piece that you want to be aware of is that our temperature also tells the body something about what time it is we want to be doing when. When we lived outdoors, it would have been warmer days when the sun was present. And then the moment the sun drops, like, a beach day or something, you probably experienced that so warm and hot and then the sun sets and suddenly the sand is cold and it's just so clear you need the layers because it's so obvious the difference of the day and the night. That's what we're trying to mimic. So if we're spending most of our day indoors, what can we do? We can turn up our ambient temperature if this is available to you. Turn up ambient a temperature in your space and then drop it in the evening. Simply doing that can signal more about what time it is and what to be doing when. If you don't want to do this automatic or yourself, then there are some smart meters that can do this for you while you're sleeping. The suggestion from the Sleep Foundation is anywhere from 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit in the nights. And you're looking to do this in the lead up to sleep because that will help cue in the body that we're winding down and that it's going to prepare more of that melatonin production. If available to you, cooling mattress toppers are awesome. I see really measurable changes for people with their sleep trackers when they get something like this, but it is an investment. But if it's available to you, that can really make a big difference. You want daytime cold exposure. This sounds probably paradoxical or sounds counterintuitive, but it's because of the paradoxical warming effect that happens after cold exposure. Probably a lot of you see the trends of people doing ice baths and all the things. Amazing. So good for sleep. But you do want to look at, can you put those in your days so that you have that kind of excitatory response thereafter? And then in the evenings, have heat exposure because of the paradoxical cooling effect thereafter. So whether that's saunas, whether that's a hot bath, whether that's a warm shower, and the protocol for that out of many, many studies is about an hour to 2 hours before bed for at least 10 minutes, you're getting this heat exposure. And it seems to help with sleep onset and quality and a few other markers of improving your sleep. Now, I mentioned that this is all about temperature timing. What are some other things that can either warm up or cool down the body? Well, certainly chronopharmacology, that's a fancy term for your drug timing. What are common drugs? Alcohol, caffeine, THC, supplements, prescriptions, what have you. So you just want to kind of get a sense of, are these kind of excitatory, warming up the body or cooling the body? Certainly caffeine, alcohol, and those things can have this kind of energizing heat effect. And alcohol is a little bit of its own. It's a longer topic. But we do see that can absolutely disrupt sleep. And sadly, it's probably one of the more noted things with wearables is people, once they get those sleep trackers, is just seeing how much alcohol really just obliterates sleep. Such a bummer. I know. So any more, if you can move it earlier, if at all, that's what we're looking to do. So really auditing the types of drugs you're having is important. These apps can help with that temperature side of things. And for women of menstruating age, the temperature piece is really important and dynamic. That goes into our infradian rhythms, and those are longer rhythms than a day. So those can help you there. Now, at a glance, these are the things that I just mentioned for the temperature tools, circadian aligned temperature tools. And I can certainly share these slides if helpful, so we can get you those. Now, lastly is circadian meal timing. This is so simple. Oh my gosh, I'm giving you a thumbs up. I kind of fixed that with Zoom. I don't know why it does that. But with circadian meal timing, what I find is that while it's so simple, it's challenging in application. And the goal is to have more of your meal timing. So when you're eating your food, you're doing it when the sun is present and less when the sun has set. And at bare minimum, we're looking to have it be, here, I'll show you, first bite, last bite of food, beginning and around about an hour or so post waking, and then ending around 2 to 3 hours before bed, bare minimum. Now that's bare minimum. I will say with our wearables, we do see benefits that extend if you even have your last bite of food earlier. So we're talking 4 to 5 hours or more hours before bed when you're having your last bite of food. And if you track, you can see some of the difference that this can make. So that's a big important point, but bare minimum 2 to 3 and experiment with more. This is all called circadian rhythm intermittent fasting. And the goal here is that you're looking at when do you have your first bite and last bite of food, because those turn on some of those digestive clocks, and you're looking to have most of those during your sunlight hours, and that you are giving that digestive break when it is dark out. If you want to learn more about this, Dr. Sachin Panda out of the Salk Institute is one of the foremost researchers in this area. He wrote the Circadian Code. We did a podcast with him. It was one of our most popular podcasts. Really fascinating. So really highly suggest that if you want to delve in more. And lastly, continuous glucose monitors are one of our more recommended things. If available to you, you can even have your doctors prescribe this for you. And so what can happen is that you're tracking your glucose and learning how glucose exists on a circadian rhythm as well. And if you're someone that has wake ups at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, an incredibly common reason for that is that your glucose is having that instability by day and very much mirroring that in your evenings while you're sleeping, and often crashing throughout the course of that night and then resulting in wake up. So really can be life-changing when you discover that. Here are some apps that could help you. Again, I mentioned that circadian app, and no affiliation to any of these, but Zero app is another one that can help. And On Time Health is actually the brainchild out of Dr. Sachin Panda's research lab. So that could be noteworthy as well. At a glance, here are your tools. And do know that there are more Zeitgebers. We just had time for a quick look at 3, but there are more. When you're moving, I alluded to the drug timing piece, your sleep-wake timing, thought timing. So these are additional Zeitgebers or circadian influencers that can further impact your sleep results. So our key takeaways, just at a glance, just understanding how crucially important sleep is, looking at circadian rhythm mastery, understanding this indoor issue, that this is a big problem. How can we embrace nature, kind of getting ourselves outside more, but also mimicking nature indoors, and then implementing these strategies? Because, if we don't do any of these things, then we're not going to get some of those results, right? I know I threw a lot at you, and I went really fast. That's that New Yorker vibes in me. So if I left anything out or anything was unclear, please reach out to me. You can email us over here at team@sleepisaskill.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. I shared it's been going out every Monday for over 5 years. You can follow us on social, and we do have kind of online cohorts and other groups and ways that you can go through entire programs using Oura Rings to really dive into your own sleep. Okay, I'm going to stop talking, and I see that I've missed some things in the chat, and I'm wondering, Jessica, were there things that I super missed in this chat to address right off the bat, or should I go through the beginning?
So first I'm saying thank you, but I tried to take questions from the top and throw them at the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is in caps questions for Mollie.
Oh my gosh. This is
I'm not sure we'll get to everybody's, but at least we could get to some of those.
Jessica, you are incredible. Okay, so first off, yes, and I know our time is limited. So if I don't get to anything, or if you have to jump off or whatever, again, don't hesitate. team@sleepisaskill.com, and I'll get your answers to you. So melatonin, cherry juice, olive oil, or tryptophan, helpful. So I would say the following. I would say, one, because we know that almost all of us have this circadian dysregulation or disruption just purely from living in modern society. I would say that I would always begin with these principles first before bringing in these things. Why? One, because I find that half of the time it doesn't even show up in any sort of measurable way on sleep trackers. For many, I would say, especially if we're not doing the fundamentals, I would say then it becomes like an expensive thing that you're just buying, taking for no good reason. Then I would also say I really encourage people to test, not guess. So when we work with people, we have particular functional medicine panels that we like to have people go through so that we can get a sense of, well, are you massively deficient in vitamin D, which is super common and will affect your sleep? Are you dealing with B issues? Do you have iron issues? I know someone was dealing with restless leg in here. Often understanding our iron levels can affect our results with restless leg, so I would like for us to know what we're dealing with versus just kind of arbitrarily supplementing. Now, there is evidence to support things like cherry juice, what a tongue twister, to show some benefits for sleep. There are questions of melatonin supplementation. It is a hormone, so it could make sense to have the same reverence that we have for, kind of hormone replacement therapies, the same way we look at those thoughtfully before we start in on that. We might want to do the same thing for melatonin, and do know that outside of the United States, there are certainly other countries that you require prescription to get melatonin, even though here it's just so easily available and we give it to kids and all the things. I would really encourage people to do these things first and then see the results with their melatonin. You can also test in things like the Dutch test is a popular one where you can get readouts of your cortisol load by day and your melatonin load by night. And those are two important hormones for us to understand for sleep. So I would really get some more information, ideally before, but yes, they do have efficacy, or we do have certain studies to support some benefits. But I will say melatonin is certainly not like an Ambien or something. It's more of a preparatory hormone for sleep. So it helps us prepare for sleep and lower our heart rate and calm the body and lower our body temperature and all those great things versus like knocking us out or something. Is there an ideal bedtime wake time? So good. Well, what I would say is another thing I'd like to leave you with is beginning with focusing on your consistent wake up time 7 days a week and picking one that you can be consistent with. I also work with poker players. So despite all this thing about sunrise, sunset, I also know that some people are shift workers. You have, obligations and other reasons where you might not be able to kind of align your life with more of the sun and moon and what have you. So we really want to pick a time that way you can wake up where it's fairly consistent every day. So that would be my suggestion there. Lucid dreaming, whole other big topic. It's kind of advanced and sometimes problematic because a lot of the protocol for that is to wake yourself up more often throughout the course of the night. And many of us don't want to do that, but so that would be a longer topic. Sleep mask over the years. Oh my gosh. I just got one from Z Lab that I actually really like that has a cool little blocks out more of some of the holes in there. There's Manta Sleep. There's some even on Amazon that are pretty great. We've got some in our store, I believe, that could be helpful. Okay, I know I'm at the top of the hour. So Jessica, and I'm eating into your time. And then again, people that already put those questions in, I'm so sorry. So I can absolutely answer those offline to make sure those get answered.
So obviously, like I said before, I want to say thank you. I think everybody is appreciative of all the things that you said because you gave a lot of data and stats and practical steps as well.